So the next session will be presented by Ali El Driani. And thank you so much, Ali, for joining us from Lebanon in that early time. And he would be presenting on remote instruction or instructing remotely. That would be from the experience taking on Spring 2020 Educators Experience. So over to you, Ali. Your microphone is muted, Ali. If you can please unmute the microphone.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, and you can see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you so much for this opportunity, and it's really great to be with this nice group and share experiences from different parts of the world. Actually, this is based on the experience that we passed through at our uni during the spring semester. Now, the main purpose of this research or this work was to capture the experience from the educators' perspectives and viewpoint, and how did they experience all what happened, and how did they see things, what were the main challenges, and what were the good points and the challenges faced during this experience. But before we go into the actual details of the findings or the insights from the educators, it's so important to put things in perspectives, because coming from a management HR background, we always see things from a wider and smaller perspectives. There are environment factors and forces that controls and that they had influence on the experience of educators and learners and universities and the administrative staff at any university. Now, ignoring what is happening around us, it means that we are assuming that we're in a perfect scenario, we're in a perfect situation where everyone is free-headed and fully focused on what is happening. So understanding the macro perspective of what happened is so important. Now, in a country like Lebanon, let me give you prior to the move online, what we were having in my country, in Lebanon, and around us as a university. The first case of COVID-19 was discovered in February 2019. That's when the Ministry of Health announced the first case officially in Lebanon. Now, we were almost 1 month through the semester, so we were running physical classes, we were normal teaching, we're in our game, we're in a safe zone. So we were almost 1 month through the semester. Now our semester here is around 4 months, so it's almost quarter the semester on campus. Now, Lebanon was passing through a very challenging times, economic, financial, monetary. We were at sometimes with no government, the government resigned, and we were having protests on the streets. So people were out on the streets complaining against the government and the corruption in the government. I'm just giving you the context where we moved to teach and we moved to interact online with our which is very important for us. It's so important to look at this. Now, we were seeing lots of businesses closing, lots of employee layoffs, so parents, so instructors, so many universities as well. They had to cut some of the contracts of their staff as well, and some of the instructors, whether full-time or part-time instructors. We were having a high unemployment rate. In Lebanon, we have an internet issue. We have an infrastructure. We have technology and IT infrastructure, which is very, 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 very weak infrastructure and bad for internet and for the information technology. We have electricity power cut. I'm not lamenting and complaining here, so please don't think that I'm just complaining about the situation. But this is the context where we moved to teach online, and we should as well look at this seriously. So we have electricity power cuts in Lebanon, and the government took the decision to lock down the country. So to close shops, to close malls and supermarkets, and universities and organizations were the country is in a total lockdown. Now, another important issue is that we don't have a legislation for online teaching. So online teaching is not recognized by the official bodies, by the government, and by the ministry. Another important issue here in Lebanon that we don't have a quality assurance standards and audits. So we don't have, like in the UK or in Australia, like body that governs and makes audit and sets standards for quality teaching. I mean, talking traditional teaching, now we're talking about online, so the situation is even worse. Another important thing here is the corruption and the fraud in the higher ed. The higher education in Lebanon in the past year was struck by a wave of corruption and fraud in lots of universities, private universities especially. So the trust in the higher ed dropped in the eyes of the public. In Lebanon, to my knowledge, we don't have an online teaching experiences at universities. So we don't have universities in Lebanon offering online courses with degrees in any of the private or the formal university. The majority of our instructors in the majority of universities are part-time instructors. And here we know the full-time to students ratio, the standard. In Lebanon, unfortunately, the majority of our instructors are part-time instructors. We don't have a requirements for teaching at university in Lebanon, like teaching diploma or specific courses before you can join the uni and teach at the uni. We have in Lebanon around 60 universities for a population of 5 million, around 5 million, and around 150,000 students at the uni level, and 40% of those students are in the Lebanese university, which is the only official governmental university, and 20% of the population is from the foreign students. So this is the context prior to moving online in Lebanon. In sum, we were passing in a very unrest situation, environment forces, downturn indicators at all levels. We have the COVID-19 lockdown, and I mean, families and instructors and everyone in the country was fearing for their health and their safety. So this is a concern that was in the mind of everyone. We had protests in the street and road closures on a daily basis. So people even were not able to arrive to their work because of the road closures. And we don't have a suitable IT infrastructure and internet, and the lack of legal and quality assurance standards. So at Maaref University, we were struck by the crisis. As instructors, as administrative staff, we didn't have a prior online course experience across the university. Now, yes, we had some initiatives at some of the faculties, at some individual staff within the university. However, we did not have as a uni an experience with online teaching and online courses. We were forced to move online without prior plan and preparation. So it was a reaction to what happened. We didn't have time to plan. We didn't have time to prepare. No proper training was conducted to our staff. We didn't have time to train our instructors and train our staff. Plus, the remote working conditions, because add to this, we were working from home, and that's another burden and another layer, which is virtual working and virtual collaboration, which is a challenge for us and our instructors. As a new institution established in 2005, we had only 10 weeks remaining for the semester. So all this, and we have only left 10 weeks to finish the semester. We have around 900 students at that time, and around 170 courses across different faculties. And we had lots of senior projects going on with our students, and various courses and a different nature and different structure. Of course, our target as a university is the lower income family. That's another thing to think about. Okay. So in terms of the objectives of the work and in terms of the objectives of the research, we wanted to examine the experience of educators or instructors at Maaref University amid the pandemic and their approaches to teaching during the spring 2019 academic semester. That's one of the purposes of the work, and to use the results to conduct a training need analysis, to prepare an action plan in order to deliver a better experience and results in the coming semester. Now, of course, we use the exploratory, inductive, qualitative, focusing on semi-structured interviews and focused group interviews with a huge number of part and full-time instructors, and using the convenient sampling technique. Now, I'll move now to the key findings and the key results. Now, what did we find? Instructors struggled in engaging students. They were having a disengaged audience. Students were concerned about their health, concerned about their safety. They have internet issues. They don't know what is this online thing. It's a change for them. So they were fearing this. Some of them, they actually dropped out. Some of them, they were suffering from symptoms of burnout, of physical, mental breakdown, and similar to instructors and staff as well. So the key challenge for instructors was to engage with students. Another key issue was, besides the concern to engage and besides the concerns to deliver, instructors themselves were fearing for their health and fearing for their safety because of the COVID-19 thing. And because they were working from home, they didn't have the facilities at home, the needed facilities at home. And an important thing that as well they didn't have is the physical well-being check. Okay, the physical well-being check. Are they able to deliver lectures from home? Do they have the proper physical setup at home? I mean, let me give you an example here. For example, in the UK, they did a research and they found out that employees working from home, they suffered from back pains. You know why? The reason why they suffered from back pain and shoulder pains is because they were doing work on the dining tables, and the dining tables, and usually the design of the dining table is just higher than the work table. So they were uncomfortable in the physical place where they were working. The same as our instructors, they had the same insight. They were suffering from this at home. And because some of them, they teach in different, and in other universities, they had different arrangements for this online. Now, some universities are using this software, and other universities are using a different software, you know. So in some cases, an instructor was using 2 or 3 different platforms or systems at the same time, parallel to this. So this was another challenge for them. Now, remote teaching made some students remotely. Okay, so we had issues with inclusiveness. Some of our students were remote totally. They were out of the reach from their instructors. And because instructors were using the classical pedagogy and the methods in the physical teaching, they struggled in maintaining this momentum on online platforms. So they were confused. Should they continue with the same approach? Should they use the same methods? So should they use the same assessment issues? So you see at some points or some cases a drop in the confidence of the instructor, where we used to have instructors with a high student evaluation during the physical classes, but suddenly the same instructor was struggling online. Lots of complaints coming from students, a drop in students' evaluation for the same instructor online. So that was a challenge for the instructors. And the tools, the focus on the tools and the technology was more than the content and the philosophy itself. So you'll see that instructors were just saying that, okay, we knew about this tool, we knew about this technology, while the issue is not in the tool and it's not in the technology. The Zoom is there, the Teams is there, the Microsoft, the Google Meet is there, and that's enough. So the focus, instead of being on the philosophy and the method and approach, it was on the tools and the gadgets and the technology. Now, we were seeing a drop in student satisfaction. We conducted a survey for our students at the third week of being online, and we've seen a drop in the satisfaction of students with this experience. Lots of concerns, lots of worries, lots of complaints, and these things. Now, instructors as well were concerned about the reward and how their performance will be assessed. Okay, so all this effort, all this investment in this online and preparation for the online classes, because you know it takes more time than physical class. Now instructors were wondering, would they get the same pay? Would they receive an increase in the pay? Taking into consideration that the financial economic challenges in the country. So they were concerned about the return on investment. What is it in it for me as an instructor? Is it worth this investment of time and effort? Plus, they were like students facing technical issues at their houses and their homes. So they were having internet cuts and electricity cuts. Now, concerns about the learning outcome attainment. Now, if you ask any instructors about the spring experience, they would tell you at most, okay, students got 40% of the learning objectives. So that's an issue because the main objective of a course is the learning objectives. Okay, whatever the learning objectives are were their attributes, were their competencies, were their skills. However, instructors, they thought that they did not deliver 100% or at least a high percentage of learning outcome delivery. Then there is this issue of serious plagiarism and cheating issue. Instructors struggle to deal with plagiarism and cheating. They did not know how to deal with this. In many cases, they didn't know that students were cheating. That's even worse. So, but still, they could not deal with this. They didn't know how to deal with this. They didn't have the needed tools and the needed softwares to deal with cheating. So there was a lot of suspicious about the results, the actual results, the actual performance of students. They were having lots of student dropout and tardiness in terms of students attending. I mean, Nahina mentioned the issue of were they online or not. She was not sure that students were online with her in the class or not. Were students were arriving late to online sessions, were not attending online sessions, were missing on submissions, were missing on exams and quizzes, and instructors really struggled in dealing with this. And what to do with someone who's telling you that I did not submit because I had an electricity issue? Should you give a chance? How you deal with this? So instructors were suffering with this little time to prepare for the, I mean, you mentioned about the social constructivism and the formative assessments and giving time for collaboration and discussions and creating a community among the students. Now, instructors didn't have time to think about this even. They were concerned about the delivery of the content. Okay, the delivery of the chapters, the delivery of the learning objectives, and they themselves, by the way, the majority of instructors, by the way, they didn't have a previous experience in delivering online courses. Not only that, they didn't have a previous experience in attending online courses, and that's a problem and that's an issue. So no prior experience in online teaching and no prior training for them. Although they considered this an opportunity to development, however, for them it was really an overwhelming experience, a challenging experience, and they all preferred face-to-face teaching. So after all, they prefer the face-to-face teaching. They're still convinced that the face-to-face teaching is better for the delivery of. Now, in sum, the key findings of our work with instructors and the inputs that we got from our instructors, that first, it was a reactive, no time for planning, no prior training received, overwhelming experience. The lockdown working from home issue, we need to think that this is a serious and a major issue for instructors. The kids at home, family members at home, it's not the ideal situation for online teaching. in ideally online teaching, ideally preparing for an online course, you need to have the proper physical setup, and you need to have the safety and the psychological and the mental stability around you to be able to prepare an online course and to be able to go with your students online. Now, this was not the case in our spring 2019 experience. Instructors themselves were locked at home in self-isolation. And well, some of them, they had COVID-19 infections, so they were treated and they were hospitalized. So this is another issue. So instructors were suffering from burning out and lots of challenges. And that's why for me and for, my observation that it was not really an online teaching and online learning more than lecturing virtually, delivering lectures virtually to students. So that's why I'm very careful in using the term. I'm not saying it's an online learning. It was not an online learning experience, a fully online learning experience, as much as delivering lectures online to students the traditional way, using the traditional methods and using the traditional tools and using the traditional assessment approaches to online. Now, after doing this work and after doing this training need analysis, we had to upgrade our online teaching and assessment with the needed ICT support and ICT infrastructure. We had to work as a university on upgrading our internet capacities, our server capacities. We needed to endorse some tools, some new software, some new applications. We had to upgrade this infrastructure, and we need to instituting the students' engagement, because students' engagement is not only the work of the instructor, it's the work of the instructor, it's the work of the faculty administration, it's the work of the university, the student affairs office, the marketing department. It's the work of everyone in the university and even the IT department. So we had to do this as an institution. So following with the students and engaging with the students as a university and as a learner-centered approach. And we had to think of moving from remote instructions and teaching virtually to actual online teaching and preparing and delivering a better experience for our students. Now, in terms of future research, it's so important to look at students' perspectives. Now, here we're talking about us, instructors, part-timers, university. However, the person who's missing from the picture is the student. And you know, the challenges that the lecturers or the instructors mention, you have to multiply them with 1,000 in terms of students as well. So students, they have their issues and their challenges. So we need to account for students' views and insights. We need to look at the senior management point of view as well, because, you know, universities were suffering economically as well. No funds, no money to invest in training, no money to invest in developing the staff, laying off lots of the staff, cutting the salaries of many of the instructors. So you have to as well look at the senior and the top management, how they are saying things. It's so important to conduct a quantitative or a mixed methods approach where you do a research with a purpose to generate the results over the population, and to as well account for different stakeholders here. You have the families, you have the community expectations, you have the industry that's so worried about the graduate competencies as well. And then creating and debating the results and bringing people from different stakeholder groups to debate the results and create a discussion. And as a further quantitative analysis, it's good to do a factor analysis in order to clearly identify what are the factors that are making or influencing or affecting students' experiences and satisfaction and engagement. Well, that's in a nutshell my presentation. Nahina, did I cross the time limit for my presentation?
But thank you, Ali, a little bit, but thank you so much for this one. I believe with this presentation, you're speaking the heart of every academic who who are doing online sessions. And I was so into your presentation because I was just feeling, wow, that is exactly how I felt, not in terms of experience, but some of the feelings, because yet every country has different setups. Is that
You
okay?
know, when Martin was just talking about this community and collaboration, no, it's an ideal. I know it's perfect to do it. However, I was recalling the situation of the instructors and situation of the learners and the country, and I was wondering, you know, where is the time to do this? Where is the perfect situation where everyone is into learning and free-minded and focused? Plus, not to forget the issue of the course teaching load for instructors in Lebanon is different from Australia and is different from the UK. So many of our instructors are fully loaded in teaching. So they have at least 3 to 4 teaching courses per semester. How an instructor, plus you mentioned the ideal class size or class number, which is 20, 21. That's not the case. It's not in our university. We have classes of 40 and 50 and 60 now in Lebanon because of the cuts and because of the saving. So you need the right setup in order to do this.
Sure. Now, thank you so much, Ali, and I can see that everyone is appreciating a beautiful presentation. Thank you. I'll just rush into the next presenter, and maybe if
Thank
we
you
have
so much for your time.
towards
I'm sorry
the
I
end,
didn't leave time for questions.
that's totally fine. Towards the end, if we get time, we can take more questions for Ali. Thank you,
so
Ali.
much.
And we will move on to next presentation by Hassan Rkein. The presentation is Innovative Assessments for Quality Learning Experience. Over to you, Hassan.
Thank you, Nahila.